Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Why, hello, Connected Life friends.
It's a new welcome.
Yeah, I just...
I liked that.
Really?
I just like change.
Oh, you do?
And you mostly say, welcome, Connected Life peeps, every time. So I just liked it as being different.
Well, hey, Connected Life peeps, Justin here. Hanging out with Abby.
That's me.
Yeah, you should tilt your mic a little more towards your mouth.
That's
right
me.
There. That's you. Hey, friends. So we're hanging out here, having some fun. Got a good conversation to happen today. But while I'm sitting here looking at Abby, I'm also staring at a bald man all over her body. True statement. True statement.
That is a funny scenario.
And it's funny.
Another bald man.
Yeah, he looks a lot like me, but it's not me. And he's all over her. Well, not all over, just her upper body. Like her chest and arms and back.
Well, it covers my butt.
Oh, he's on your butt too.
And over, he actually, all the areas.
All the areas.
It's a very large shirt.
Yeah.
People.
So our friend Bryant, he had his 30th birthday recently.
Yes.
And we got someone printed off t-shirts with his face on it.
There's like thousands of his face on this one shirt.
Yeah. It's just all over in a big giant, like his face, very giant in the center, and then it kind of goes everywhere. Uh-huh. But it's funny because when I was wearing it, it looked like I was wearing a shirt of myself because like in real life, we don't look a lot alike, but on the shirt, like if you just
something
get a quick glance,
the coloring and
the
just
quick glance,
a bald
you're like,
man.
Oh, is that Justin? And
are you wearing yourself as a shirt?
Mm-hmm. I actually had brought it to my men's camp that I recently went to, the man camp. And I was brought it because he was going to be there. And then he wasn't, but I still wore it. People looked at me like...
Did they think you were wearing a shirt of yourself?
Kind of.
Or just like, why would you wear that shirt?
Yeah, they were like, I got a couple looks and I was like, it's not me, it's my friend Brian. For those that didn't know. Oh, okay.
Well, I feel sad because it's the most comfortable shirt I own. It's like a shirt dress and I don't have any of those. And because you traded with me. So it's like an extra, extra large man shirt. Mm-hmm. And I want to wear it because it's so comfortable, but it's weird. That's why I'm wearing it today because I didn't really leave the house. But it's weird to go out in public with another man's face all over me.
It is kind of weird. And especially if people know you but see you at a distance, they think it's me all over your...
Well, that feels fine. Honestly, if this was a shirt of your face, I would not feel weird about that at all.
I'll get you a shirt of my face. You can try and wear it. Anyways.
I wear that. I wear that proudly. I'd be like, yeah, this is my husband.
Yeah. We have a great episode for you guys today. Maybe.
We hope.
Well, it could be. Yeah. See that? We're not too confident in what you're about to listen to, but we are confident in the Life Consulting Masterclass that applications are open right now for.
Yeah.
And we've been having, I've been interviewing some amazing people. It's been a really fun process.
I feel really excited about this year.
Yeah.
I will say that you want to apply as soon as possible because to get into the school, you need to do Pathway to Freedom, and you really want time to be able to take your time through that.
Yeah. So we'll get you set up inside of that if we allow you in. But
so you can go to justinandabi.com or email support@Stumball-Consulting.
Yeah.
It's a year-long program.
10-month long program.
Well, but my friend told me that that's what year-long programs are.
Yeah, but you're going to be stuck in there for 10 months straight. We've got you. But it starts in January. It's going to be a great way to kick off your year. It's a whole beginning of your year, learning how to do what we do, plus get radical personal transformation. So
yes,
do that. Without further ado, we're gonna get into an episode I call The Art of Curiosity.
Oh, I call it Don't Be a Dick. I'm just kidding. But I got you.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, it is kind of that. It might as well be called that as well. But it's more digestible if we call it The Art of Curiosity. But one of the
isn't it weird when I say the thing that's less digestible than you?
Yeah.
Like you say the politically correct thing and I say
I
the
usually am
offensive
cleaner
thing.
on the podcast, I think, than you. And then in real life, like I'm
You're
a bit
worse.
more offensive
Yes.
in real life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I always hear you talk on here. I'm like, I'm glad she said it, not me. But this conversation is going to revolve around curiosity.
Yes.
And what does that mean, curiosity? What are we getting curious about? So in life, relationships, how do I put it? It's very easy for us to make conclusions and assumptions about things. And we can...
Or judgments.
And we can believe that we know.
Definitely that we know that we know.
We know that we know. And that leads to a whole string of disaster inside of connections and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we want to get into some of that. I want to start off this conversation by saying, I knew that I knew about so many things throughout my life. And that was something that for me, holding on to my relationship with judgment, and that evolved, that looked like, that had so many ways that it was expressed. But so often I knew exactly what other people were thinking. I knew exactly what other people's intentions were. I knew exactly what their heart was towards me. I knew exactly what,
oh yeah, when they were looking at me, I could tell that they were jealous of me.
You're so jealous of me.
I
know they hate me.
When they said that, I could tell that they were lying.
Yeah.
A lot of like, oh, I definitely noticed that she was looking down when we said that, and that's because she's ashamed.
Yeah.
Because she did that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know that they were up to something real shady. And here's the thing. For me, I'll talk about me in my own, because there's a couple of things. I believe that we as humans have a discerning capacity.
Yeah.
Where we can discern that there is something off. Something doesn't feel like it aligns with a sense of what is truth for us at times.
Well, I want to just talk about this. Like our bodies are always perceiving energy. So I carry energy going on inside of my body and my being and my emotions, and you carry energy. And in different moments, my energy shows up in different ways. Sometimes when I'm really locked inside myself, you can't feel much energy. Sometimes when I'm really happy and vibrant, you can feel a lot of playful energy. Sometimes when I'm really frustrated, you can feel like coldness, you know?
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm confused.
Sometimes when you're sick and you're tired.
It feels like a cloudy gloom.
Well, it can feel like totally like you're angry or disconnected from me as a human and have a problem with me, right?
Well, this is what I was going to say is we all have energy and we're all projecting energy. And I'm not talking about new age energy stuff. I'm actually just saying like every person has emotional life energy.
These different colors.
I'm not going into that. I'm just saying we all have energy.
Yes, it's an emotional emittance. We have this emotional emittance that we emit.
And the thing is that I can say I often am accurate noticing that an energy is different.
Yes.
I can feel something's off, or I can feel something's different, or I can feel something's unique. The problem is that for years, and this really got us in our marriage. So for years, one of the pain points that we've had is that I would be able to feel that your energy was different, that you'd shifted different energy. And you were not very connected to yourself back then. So I could say something like something going on and you'd say, no, nothing, absolutely nothing's going on, because you had no idea. You weren't connected to your own emotional state, your own physical state, your own feelings. So I might notice something's off. And so then eventually I would decide what that was that was off. Like, no, I can tell something's off. You must be
angry at me, avoiding me.
Yes. Where it could be that you're just hungry, or you could be in your head processing something that happened earlier in the day.
Could be anxious.
You could be anxious. Yeah. So what I've learned is not to give up the discernment part, which is I can feel something is happening.
Right.
But giving up the belief that I know what is happening, that is what I have decided to give up.
Like I went over to my friend's place of work the other day, and I sent him a text. and said, hey man, I'm going to come over and pick up a few things. Don't know if you're there. If you are there, I want to bring you a sandwich, whatever. And he was like, oh man, I totally would love that, but I'm already like driving off down the I-5, can't do it. And then, I texted him again and I was like, hey, well, I'll just have one of your employees work with me on it, whatever. So I go into his office and I'm talking to his employee and I was like, yeah, I know he's already left and stuff, but could you give me some information on this? He's like, let me go talk to a shop manager. Like it was a young kid.
Yeah.
Goes walking back. And then my friend comes walking forward.
The one who had texted you.
The one who had texted me, they were already gone.
Yeah.
Right. And so there was energy. There was very different, weird, palpable energy.
Like you could feel the awkwardness hanging.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. But I'm sitting internally. I'm saying to myself, I don't know what happened between this text and the time which I got here, the 5-minute drive for me getting here.
Yeah.
But I do know that the energy's here. I don't know if he's worried that, he's caught in a lie and I'm thinking many different things. Like maybe he was on his way out. Maybe he was gone and they called him back and he turned around and came back. Maybe he was about to leave and he texted before he wasn't quite on the 5 yet, but he texted it because he's heading up. And, right. So I'm sitting there and instead of coming to a conclusion.
I'm like, you liar. Now you're acting weird because you have shame because you got caught.
I neither said that out loud nor thought it in my head. I just stood there and said, this is an awkward situation to myself. And I'm going to let us just kind of do a dance. And so we did a conversational dance and he was taking care of things. And he hoed and hummed and scratched his head. And then I went off and I got a text message a couple hours later that my stuff was ready. And I came back over and he was there. And he said he got back from where he was. And I said, hey, here's the deal. Let's just call a spade a spade. There was some very weird energy when I got here. I don't care. Look, let me preface this. If you were lying and you didn't want to see me, it's cool. We all lie. Like that happens. We get caught in it, whatever. If it's something else, I'd love to know it. Like, I just want to clear the air. He's like, man, yeah. I mean, I literally was headed out that direction. And then the guy called me back and said, hey, we have a bunch of things here. And I swung back. And so when I saw you, I did think, oh God, now he thinks that I'm lying about this situation. But I was out and I didn't know how to approach it. And we both went into freeze, right?
Yes.
But in that moment.
That emotion that you could feel.
Yes.
A crazy thing. And most of
palpable.
us. It was palpable. And most of us, when we feel that, assign what that energy means.
This is what this is.
They feel shame. And the truth is he might have felt shame, but not because he lied. But because he thought, oh no, it looks like I lied.
Yeah, totally.
But we cannot feel the difference.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what I could have done, You could have.
What could you have done?
I could have exploded on him and been like, you liar, you told me, what is it? Like, I could have had some big insecure moment, which that's not me. I don't have those. Yeah. But I could have also put assigned intent in the back of my head, said
and
nothing.
Judged him on the inside.
And been like, that man is dead to me.
Yeah. Or even just like, okay, I see how it is. I'm not going to keep pursuing connection with him. Or that's not the type of friend I want to have.
Yep.
Or like just make, oftentimes people don't make big, this is more scary. Yeah. Oftentimes people don't make huge things out of a moment like that.
Yeah.
They just make a little wall.
Yeah.
Wall. A little judgment that's like, oh, I just don't trust him anymore.
Yeah. And on that wall says, I'm contemplating your death right now.
No, I'm saying it's not a huge thing. But the people will just be like, I just don't trust him anymore. And then the next time he does something that could be shady, your mind is now looking for other ways to prove you're right. See,
can't trust this person.
Yeah, it's like what people will do is they'll just assign a judgment and they'll decide it's not that big of a deal. Because I love what you did. You actually called it out and asked him.
Yeah, I was just like, I initiated the art of curiosity.
Yes, you did.
I should believe the best about this situation or withhold my assigning intent on this situation and ask a few questions. Even if it feels awkward to do this, it's less awkward to have a straightforward conversation than run into a friend a whole bunch of other times where you're holding an account against them and start building a case slowly.
Yeah. No, they did this study, and I'm gonna butcher it. I almost want to just pause and look it up.
I just make stuff up. It's the connected life.
Well, I just wanted to get the numbers accurate, but they did this study on people who believe, like, how often people believed they could read body language and energy.
Yeah.
And then how often they were actually right. And then how often they believed they were right.
Oh, yeah. They believed they were right way more than they were actually right.
Absolutely. They believed they were right so much of the time, but they were only right like 40% of the time.
This happens a lot.
Wait. Can I say one more thing? Then they did another study with people who were doing the same like question, like, can you read them?
Yeah.
To people that they had been married to or friends with for a long time. And the longer they'd been friends with, the more they believed that they could read the person accurately.
And the less they could.
But no, same amount.
Well, I mean, the same amount, but they believed more. What I'm saying is they believe it much higher. It's
like 80% you believe you fully can read them.
Right.
But you're still at like the 40%. Now, I can't remember the percentages, but it's like, it's a surprisingly low number. I need to memorize it so that I can, because when I read this study was like, okay, this is humbling, because what do I do for a job?
Yeah.
I read people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I am good at it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I can notice a lot.
Yeah.
And now, even though I have a great track record, I have also a great track record of how many times I've been wrong. Yeah. Like you, for instance.
Yeah.
I have been wrong about you so many times.
Yeah. So we end up deciding that we know.
Yeah.
So much.
That we know what somebody's thinking or feeling, and that we can read them. And this has been huge for me, especially in my closest relationships. The more I've recognized, again, I can be right. One of my friends says this. They're like, I can be right about 90% or 95% of something I pick up on, but the 5% that I might be missing could change the entire story or the entire experience. Like, you're never going to be fully right about what someone else is going through or what they mean by what they said or without context. So there have been times that I have had a friend say something that sounds so harsh. But what I'm saying is anything we ever say has so much more context and nuance to us.
Sure.
So the concept is I can still feel like, it's not that I doubt my discernment.
Right.
It's not that I doubt that I picked up on something. When you're feeling something, I can tell. I may just not know what exactly it is.
Right.
Or I might be able to tell you're anxious, but I may not fully know what you're anxious about.
Right.
Like, maybe I can pick up that you're anxious, and I think it's that you're anxious about what we're about to go do, but maybe you're anxious about if you brought enough food for the day.
Right. So one of the things that happens oftentimes is we assign intent for protection.
Yeah.
And that's something I want to talk about.
That's good.
I know that, like, if we can decide if there's a threat, right? So a lot of times we as human beings, we're all concerned with our safety. I want to feel safe in this relationship, the connection, the experiences that I'm having. So all around me, I'm trying to read rooms unconsciously and consciously. Sometimes I'm trying to read something, and then I'm wanting to assign intent based on, does this feel safe? Can I justify why it doesn't feel safe? If something feels off and suddenly I'm not feeling safe, whatever safe means to us, settled, at peace, whatever, then all of a sudden I need to assign an intent like, oh, this person's up to something. That's why I feel this unsafety. Where for a lot of times, most often we feel something and we feel triggered all at the same time. So something is hitting inside of us that reminds us of something inside of our history that can feel unsafe.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden we create these wild accusations and judgments towards scenarios.
Well, our body perceives something. So maybe I just feel, maybe you just go inside of yourself a little bit. Maybe you're internal.
Yeah.
And what I feel is your presence just disconnect. And so the feeling in my body of your presence disconnecting might remind me of when I felt disconnected from my parents as a kid or something. And so that feeling in my body will alert me that there's a threat, but my body feeling is what then my brain tries to interpret. So my brain makes up a story to explain why I'm in a threat.
Yeah. So what ends up happening here is that oftentimes we end up putting people in boxes, and we create these senses of these disconnections. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I'm feeling something. I want to feel safe. So I'm going to create a distance between me and another individual by assigning this intent rather than getting curious. A great example is I used to work with someone who consistently assigned intent to other people. I know that they're trying to destroy the business. I know that they really were trying to hurt people inside of this. And they were someone who was deeply paranoid in their approach to stuff. And they were very accusational about everyone around them. And ultimately, like this harshness and this harsh judgment was all because they felt very unprotected in their life. Yeah. Like when you look at their history, there's a whole lot of pain and destruction. Yeah. So everything is about finding the villain in every story.
Because if I can find the villain, I can put them far away from me.
And there was no essence of, I want to get curious about why this person is doing action. So they weren't proactive within that business space of going like, hey, what's happening here inside of this? I know that you're dropping the ball over here and stuff. Tell me, because even in that, they were convinced they will lie to your face. They will lie to my face. We have to figure out the answers. Nobody's truly honest. And so what you're hearing is these wounds that are unhealed, right? That are just dripping out of their experience. And they're with every word of accusation against the world around them, they think that they're better off because they know the inside information, right? I know the intent of all of these people's hearts and I have the 411 on them. And so now they feel powerful because they've created this entire world, which is really a fantasy. So they consistently lived in this fantasy world where it wasn't true about the majority of anything going on, although they did feel something at times.
Yeah.
And they did know that something wasn't working properly. And again, what that ends up doing is it creates deep senses of disconnect, power imbalances where there's a lot of hierarchy. So all of a sudden, when I don't get curious, I'm actually dehumanizing people all around me. And we all have the capacity for that. We've all done that. We've dehumanized other people. We've removed any sense of their humanness, the good qualities inside of them, and just lump them into some judgment so that we can feel better about a circumstance.
Yeah. For me personally, I learned this so much working at the Adventure Challenge. One of my boss, Ben, there, we actually are our own bosses for our business, but in the hours that I do at TAC, he's in charge. And there are so many times that an employee would come in and tell a story about another employee. They did this and they spent $10,000 on this, and I would bite the bait. I would be like, oh my gosh, I can't, inside, I'd be like, I can't believe that person would do that. That there's no business sense. Why would they spend $10,000 on that thing? That's crazy. And then we'd get done with the meeting and I'd look over at Ben and I'd be like, how do you feel about that? And he'd be like, I don't know. I don't have enough information to have a conclusion. I don't know what the other person would say. And his belief was, one, I need more information before I assign intention
and can create a conclusion.
Or create a conclusion. Two, if I don't know, I'm going to assume the best about somebody. So he was like, I'm assuming that if they spent $10,000 on that there is some piece of information we don't understand about why they had to spend $10,000 on that thing. Yeah. And then I'd be in the meeting when the person came in and they'd be like, oh, tell me about what happened with and how the cost happened. And then you hear the story from the other person and you're like, oh, it does make sense. Like you actually, this was actually saving $90,000. We didn't understand. We didn't have all the information. And once you sit in a few moments like that, what starts to happen, and this happens in marriage. I was literally thinking this. I wish I would, there's a podcast we listen to called FML Talk. And there's these 2 episodes where this is a woman who like ramrods about how horrible her husband is. And then she gets back together with her husband. And so the next episode is them together and they're like having, and so like you hear this one side of what she said he was like. And then you hear what a much more well-rounded version of what it was actually like. And I wish everybody could experience that. Cause once from us doing marriage consulting, you hear a story. Yeah. It feels so true to you. You're like, yes, that must be it. And then you hear another person's side and you're like, that is a completely different story. And so what it's done working with Ben is it's given me that time of like, when I hear something and I want to jump to a conclusion about someone or something, I pause and I'm like, okay, I don't need to make an emotional conclusion yet because I react fast. And what is that? It's a fight or flight thing. It's like, I need to figure out fast if they are good or bad so that I can move them closer or farther away. And I am like getting rid of that system. So I'll pause and I'll be like, whoever that is not good or bad. And there's information that I don't have. And I'm not going to assume that I know what their intention is. And that life skill will change your life. That's like why every rom-com happens. Because they hear something.
Yes, the disasters in the rom-coms. All of a sudden, they make an assumption. They don't get curious and be like, what is the reason that you were over at your ex-girlfriend's house?
Yes. And they're like, I was there telling her to leave me the F alone. You know?
Like, I knew he didn't love me and I knew he was cheating on me.
Yes.
And you're like, wait a second. Why do people just ask questions in any of these movies? Because there wouldn't be a movie if they didn't ask questions, which means there wouldn't be drama. There's so much excessive drama inside of our lives and disconnection, all because we don't want to get curious.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about intentions. I think this is like, if I could give parents like one thing of parenting advice, well, that's not true. If I gave them 2 things, the first thing I'd say is learn to regulate, all that stuff. Second thing is make sure you don't assign intentions to your kids. Because I think this is one of the most painful things that happen to kids. And then because
by the way, assigning intention, just to be real clear on that is when we say, I know what your intent was. And we know that little Johnny's being a bad little boy because he doesn't want to listen. And he's actually like, even though he's making a mess of stuff, he's actually trying the best he knows how maybe in that moment, but we've assigned an intention.
Oh, little Johnny is being a brat because he doesn't want to sit still, instead of like, oh, maybe he has ADHD and he actually has a lot of trauma and his body has a lot of energy that he doesn't know how to release in a healthy way. Or like, I remember this happening to me. I had an adult tell me that they thought there's something that was really, really hard for me and I was crying about it. And they thought I was just being a brat and didn't like doing hard things, that I just was entitled and wanted everything to just be easy for me. And they like decided that that's who I was and that that's what was going on inside of me. And this feels like the human plague right now. We are all just judging each other and deciding that we're right about it and deciding that we know what is true about other people without actually getting to know people, getting to know nuance, getting to know curiosity.
Yeah.
The art of curiosity.
Yeah. And so what the art of curiosity actually requires a whole lot more from us. It requires vulnerable conversations. It requires an investigation. It requires laying down our right to accuse. We feel like we have a right to accuse people. All of us. We've all been there.
Absolutely.
Justin and Abi right at the forefront.
Yeah.
But we have to let down our right to judge. And what I mean by judgment is making swift judgments without information. And it costs us, it takes us being brave. It takes us potentially having confrontations that don't go well if we do start getting curious. It feels scary to get curious. And we have been lied to. And that's something that we need to understand, is that we as human beings, we lie in our fears. And so it makes sense that we oftentimes die to the idea of being curious.
Totally.
Because I'm not going to get the truth out of them anyways. Like that other person who was convinced that everyone was lying all over the place, and they just knew what was true. And so there's even a part of us that, when we're talking about letting go of accusation and being able to assign intent, and if that freaks you out, there's probably places that need repair, right? Like, I'm freaked out about the idea of that. I probably find my safety in judgment. I find my power inside of accusation.
Well, I've been thinking about this so much just personally lately. It's kind of fun that you picked this subject because I hadn't even been processing this with you, but I've been processing this a lot. Because I really want to be, I want every year to be less and less judgmental.
Yeah.
My hero is Paul Young. I've said it before, I have been in his presence. I got accused of something, somebody accused me of something to him. And I never even told him I didn't do it because I knew he didn't judge me, even if I did.
Yeah.
I knew that he would love me no matter what, and that he doesn't carry judgment because he, here's the truth. If you've done something that was really bad, quote unquote, messy, quote unquote, but you've received grace for it, there's often a belief that everyone deserves grace.
Right.
Those who've been forgiven much, forgive much. And so I've been that's who I want to be. And that's what I think the whole gospel is the ability to let go of judgment, because I think judgment came in the garden when we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I actually think that was judgment. We ate from judgment. Now we think that we should be able to judge good and bad, right and wrong. And we don't have the information. We don't have all the context. I cannot judge your behavior because I actually don't know your history. I don't know your motivations. I don't know the fullness of the scenario you're looking at. So we're really bad judges. I think that's why God didn't want us to eat from that tree, because he knew without eternal perspective, judgment is you're erroneous all the time. You make errors constantly and it hurts you.
We see from a very limited perspective, not just the actions that practically took place, but the heart intent.
Yeah. Of ourselves and others.
Yeah. We don't even sometimes know what motivates us when we're disconnected from ourselves. So how do we think that we can know what motivates other people?
Yeah. So and I think judgment is hard to break up with because it's a protector. But all that to say, I've been thinking about judgment as a protector lately. That when I want to judge somebody, that really means I'm feeling unsafe.
Yeah.
And what we learn as humans is that judgment is how we can set boundaries. I need to just love everybody, but if I decide that they're bad, then I can set a boundary with them.
Right.
Instead of being I am free to set a boundary with anyone.
And that boundaries are love.
Whether or not they're good or bad or a villain or not. I'm free to just set a boundary because something doesn't feel like the right fit for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so now when I notice myself judging, I'll be like, where's the threat? And I'll immediately go heart, I see that you feel really unsafe when you can't tell what's going on with somebody.
Yeah.
So maybe there's somebody and they hold their cards close to their chest and I can't really feel what they're actually feeling. And maybe I want to judge them and be they're just shut off and dissociated or disconnected and what's going on with them. I'll be okay, heart, what do you really feel threatened by? It's really scary for me when I can't read people. Oh, it feels safe when you know what to expect and you know what's going on with somebody. And because you can't read them, you feel unsafe. Yeah. Okay. And then it's my job to kind of affirm and attune to my heart, which is heart, it makes so much sense that you're scared because when you were a kid, you needed to read your mom all the time. You needed to know what was happening so that you could try to protect yourself. It makes sense that you want to know what's happening. And I want you to know that we can find ways to feel safe, whether or not you know what that person's feeling.
Yeah.
And we don't need to judge why we don't know what they're feeling or what's going on. We can actually just create safety, which is what my heart really wants. When I'm judging someone, what my heart actually wants is safety.
Yeah.
So I want to find out what it's actually afraid of so that I can meet it there.
Yeah. Speaking of that, excuse me, first impressions was coming to my mind here recently. I met somebody first.
You met somebody?
Meeting people all the time, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy world. But first impressions, the old saying is like first impression is like the most important of all of them, like the important moment. And it's really only important when we live a lifestyle of judgment.
So true.
I was talking to someone the other day and I was getting weird vibes off them. Mm-hmm. Like when I say weird vibes, like, oh, this energy, like, I don't know, they feel shut down and stuff. And we were having a deeper conversation. And I come to find out that there was a tragic story that happened in their life not that many days ago.
Oh.
Like prior to that meeting and stuff like that. And, we can,
Is it funny that the whole time we do a podcast, I just try to scan my life and figure out who you're talking about? Like even when you told the story about the guy before with the who came and left, I was like, I never heard the end of that story. This is amazing.
But I could sit there in that moment, right? Before I get any of that information, just be like, man, this person
energy feels weird.
Yeah. And start making up like, this is a terrible person. I don't like this person. Or not
well, and maybe not terrible, but maybe like, I'm
just saying that,
or.
I mean, that's something that people can get to. It's very easy for people to judge and say like, oh, this is a terrible person just because they don't show up in a certain way. They're shut down. They're quiet, whatever. Yeah. And we can also make a decision that like, oh, I met that person one time. They're such a shut down human being. You don't know that. You don't know what was just going on inside of their life.
Yeah.
And so I try when I come up, like the art of curiosity is taking these, even these first moments of meeting people and really seeking to get inside info. I mean, I think about, there was this one guy that I met years ago. I came into his life working with this group, and he was so depressive. And when I started getting the backstory, he'd gone through a bunch of tragedy within the previous couple months of meeting him. And he was actually one of the most joyful people, who was the most interactive and caring. Yep. But you get one quick snapshot without any sense of curiosity. We are quickly dehumanizing the person across from us and summing them up from this one momentary encounter. And that's something that like, there's so much to be learned and experienced from people if we're willing to like pause and be like, I don't know, I had this experience. I don't know what they're like in general. I don't know what their life is like. Maybe I should try and find out more. I should get investigative and find out about it. And it's through that investigative process, even with that person that I was talking about, I found like, oh, this is what's going on inside their life.
Right.
Of course they're having difficulty right now, even connecting with someone new.
Yeah. And a lot of people will be like, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. I'll be like, man, that interaction felt really weird. It felt really hard to connect to them. And somebody around me will be like, they're just intimidated by you. That's
totally.
Why. They're just intimidated by you. They don't know how to be powerful around a powerful person. I hate stuff like this because so many people just pad their ego when they're like, everybody's jealous of me. Everyone's intimidated by me. And I'm like, what if people are just going through something, or there's like, I think it's been really helpful.
What if you're not that special?
Well, I've been thinking about like with PTSD, I often have reactions that have nothing to do with anything that's happening in a current moment.
Yeah.
Like I am often having a flashback to something that feels really crazy to me. So we're having a conversation here, but half of my weird energy is about something that is not even happening in this room currently. And I've started to think about even the idea of like, one of the ways that I beat judgment is with a flexible view of humanity.
Yeah.
which means even if this is who you are in this moment, that may not be who you are in life. That may not be who you are. Maybe this is who you are in this season. That may not be who you are. Because I've thought who I have been in PTSD is not a good snapshot of who I am.
Yeah. I think about, when I was deeply sick for 3 years. And it was 3 to 4 years there. And
everybody decided you were just grumpy.
Yeah.
And hated everyone.
Justin's grumpy and
antisocial,
deeply antisocial and introverted. And what's funny is there's some people after that season that I talked to where they were like, man, you were so like there was like an offense and kind of like, why were you like this? And I was like, I was dying. You didn't know it. I was actually dying. That's what death looks like. That wasn't me. And, it was funny because going through it myself, I was like, oh, I lost myself. I knew who I was. But if people aren't being curious, like what's going on, there's an assessment of who you are in those times.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is why, so that's why I hold. And it's so nice when you experienced it for yourself. So like when I went through the season, I did not define this is who I am.
Yeah.
I defined this is who I am in this season. And that's not who I will always be.
Yeah.
And I thought, I wish that people would be generous towards me with that assumption. I wish that when people notice, like there's lots of times that I had hard edges in different situations because that is part of my protection system when my PTSD is strong. I have like a part of me that just goes into like hold everything together. And that powerful part of me doesn't come off soft as soft as I am. And so I'm both on the inside at the same time. I'm simultaneously this powerful, crispy kind of person, like the Oreo. I've got some outer cookie and then I have some inner mushy gushy icing inside. I can be both at the same time. And I have thought, man, it'd be so nice if when people encountered my crunchy outer cookie, that if they could think, I wonder if this is all that she is. I wonder if there's more to this. I wonder if that's not about me. I wonder if they're like, that's what I would like. It feels so nice if people could imagine that there is so much more going on underneath for me. And when I had that experience of wishing people could do that for me, it made me like double down on wanting to give that generous assumption to the people around me.
Yeah. Curiosity really is the breeding ground for grace.
Yes.
It's where we like that generous assumption. That is grace. That is saying like,
yeah. I wonder what else is happening that they're, like when you're in the grocery store and the clerk is just being an a-hole and you're so frustrated with them, like our mind going to, I wonder what pain they're in that this is how they're showing up.
Yeah. It's interesting because, we'll point out my grandpa. Like when you look at the guy at face value before he passed away, a lot of his life was a hard candy coating, a very hard candy coating.
Yes.
Let's repeat that again.
He's
very
an M&M.
hard. He's a very hardened M&M. But
it's the peanut M&M, not the regular kind.
But
those were delicious though.
Oh my God, squirrel. But when you looked at his life as an older man, there was a lot of levels that weren't fun about him. And there was a lot of self-protection, and it caused a lot of pain for a lot of different people. Yeah. But when you hunt down into a story, like if you get curious, like what created this level of harshness in this world? Yeah. And you go, this is a child of the Depression whose dad died when he was 10.
Yeah.
He was left
had to be an adult.
taking over the family farm at 10 years old until another older man could come in. Yep. And then even after that, they were poor, and he gets married and he takes off without any money, and his no family gives him any money, and he travels hundreds of miles to a small town to try and start a business at 20 some years old, early 20s, without education and just like going, I need to survive. I need to take care of my family. Like there was no one to be there and comfort me. Like my mom, his mom wasn't going to be there in the Depression era and comfort him. It was, your dad's dead. We need you to be an adult now, be an adult and help us get by in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota. Right. And so you have this across the board where people need boundaries when they're not fun. But when they're not fun, like if we get back into the deeper parts of their story and we're really curious about it, we find out that there's definitely a little broken little boy or little girl that like there was a lot of neglect and stuff. And it doesn't mean that we get a pass to continue to hurt people. That's not the conversation here. Like it doesn't mean that like, oh, we'll just let everyone around us do anything that they want and that's just okay. But what happens is that there's a sense of compassion and mercy and grace that overtakes us in the place of curiosity as we begin to investigate and we humanize that person. And then we have different capacities for how we approach them. It doesn't mean that we won't still approach them and like take a stand on how we need to confront things and hold people accountable inside of stuff into growing into the healthiest version or a healthier version of themselves. But it also means that there doesn't have to be such harshness. Yeah.
Like I have a relationship currently where they have done behavior consistently that does not feel safe for me.
Yeah.
Now, I get the option to, do I need judgment to set a boundary with them? Or can I actually just have a boundary? So my heart has been, okay, the compassion is, I understand, like I can see why they're doing this behavior. They feel really powerless. They felt really powerless to their parents. They felt really out of control. They need to feel safe. They're trying to assert themselves to feel safe. So I can see that. And I can have compassion for why they're doing the dominating behavior that they're doing. And I can say, I don't want to be around the dominating behavior. But I can do that without judging them. Why are they so effed up? What's wrong with them? Do you see how they're doing this? Or villainizing them. I don't need to be like, you're the bad guy. I can just be like, oh, I understand why you're doing that. I do a lot of things that I wouldn't prefer to do based out of survival skills, you know? And so I can have grace and compassion, and I can be like, I'll have grace from over here. Like I'm going to set some boundaries so you're not in my everyday life because I don't like being dominated regularly. But when I see you, I'm going to have grace and kindness towards you without letting you run over me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of the art of curiosity isn't about becoming powerless to the world around us.
Yes.
There's an empowered, healthy approach because, again, a lot of people are scared to get curious because now they don't have their protector of judgment and accusation and certainty and all these things that we need to have control. But we can let go of our perception of control.
Yeah.
The illusion of control.
Yeah.
Right. And as we let go of that illusion of control, we can actually become powerful individuals who have really healthy conversations about what is this, what's going on, how can we do this better, how can we relate differently.
Yes.
And inside of that, we are able to develop healthy relationships that are rooted in a lot more intimacy because intimacy starts getting created in understanding, right? So as we go, all right, I don't need to have this wall to protect me. I have other ways of protecting me that are adult and mature ways to protect myself.
Yes, totally.
So to say, if you want to use the word protect. And now I actually start to understand people and we build rich lives together.
Yeah.
Rich in connectedness all of a sudden because we're seeing not only what is happening in this moment, but if we're getting really curious, we're finding out how this person got here. And we are finding out something about the reality of their story.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking curiosity is actually really safe now that I've learned. So now that I've begun to look at judgment and curiosity and thought through it logically, the reason curiosity is so safe is there's so many times where I hear a story about what somebody said about me, or I hear a story about what somebody did, and my threat response goes off, and I'm like, that does not feel good. That does not feel okay. And now I've learned that I would say 8 times out of 10, when I ask a person, like, can you explain? Like this happened to me the other day. I had a friend who did something, and I thought that they went behind my back to do this thing. And that hurt my feelings. You know what is safe? Finding out what happened. Like, if I don't find out what happened and I just assume that, then I'm literally living in a world where they're hurting me.
Well, yeah.
And asking the question. So what I've learned is most of the time when I find out, so then I went and asked, and they actually hadn't done anything behind my back. That the reason that they were quiet is because they actually felt so much compassion for what I had said that they didn't know how to respond. They were like, this is a crazy situation that you just went through, Abby. I feel so much love towards you that I just like didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, her silence wasn't that she agreed with them or that she had been a part of this. Her silence was because she actually was with me in it.
Yeah. But
when I didn't ask the question about it, then I got really like hurt by it. And that happens. I have found the case, like oftentimes I'll be like, instead of feeling hurt that my friend didn't text me back when it was an important text, the art of curiosity, that's safe. If instead of judging it, it's safer to find out, hey, what was going on last night when I sent you this text? Did you get it? Yes. Okay. How come it was vulnerable? Did you feel like you wanted to respond, or what happened with it? And then most of the time it's like, oh my gosh, I know I felt the vulnerability in your text and it made me think I want time to respond to this. And I was busy the whole night and I was waiting for time to respond. And so I was going to respond later. You know, like oftentimes you find out that people's hearts are good, and without curiosity, you end up feeling so hurt by so many things.
What you're talking about is amplified unnecessary pain.
Yes.
And so there's a bunch of people, and what we end up doing is then we create cases against other people without curiosity in our lives. Mm-hmm. We create cases against people that not only leave us feeling separated and devastated and all this pain, but we build such a mountain for them to clean up that isn't theirs to even clean up. That's not even theirs to own. But then we bring that, if we do ever bring it to the table, we bring that volcano or that mountain to the table, slam it down, and like, look what you did, you little jerk. Home Alone reference. But what ends up happening is they're like, dude, you don't even know what my heart was. And now they're having to mop up a mess that they didn't actually even create. Right. It was all created within our own heads. And this is where, like, when we're not in relationship with curiosity, we're in relationship with this person named accusation. Yeah. Really is what it is. And accusation comes to actually just absolutely destroy relationships and connectedness and joy and pleasure. And oftentimes some of the greatest battle we are fighting is not with other people. It's with the version of people and what they've done and what their intentions are that's inside of our head.
100%.
That's one of our greatest enemies.
Yes.
Is the fantasy that we create because we refuse because we refuse to engage curiosity and have a human relational connection.
Yeah, this happened to me, I don't know, a couple months ago. There was this business deal that I was working out with this person that I know. We were talking through, like I was hiring them to do something. And they gave me a rate that I felt like they were purposefully just trying to take advantage of me, is the feeling that I had. And I could just feel like, I was like, this rate doesn't make sense to me at all. And so I could feel my guards go up, and I wanted to assign that they were trying to take advantage of me. That was like my first assumption. Why would you charge me this much for this thing? So I could feel that feeling in my body. And now I've learned to recognize it when I want to judge and I want to assume. There's like a quick thing, like it's like a shot of adrenaline that goes up inside of me, or a clinching to a story. It's like, it's a feeling inside my chest. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to assume that I know how they got to how they bid the project. I'm not going to assume that I know. I'm going to actually go to them and help me understand your bid for this project so that I can hear your heart. And they're like a stranger. Like it's not, but I was like, I'm either going to walk away with this chip on my shoulder that people are always trying to take advantage of me and that I can't trust anybody. And anytime I see them, have my walls up, or I'm just going to ask some questions. So I asked some questions and they were like, well, this is the hourly rate that I get, that I do for these other projects. And so in my head, it was just similar. So I was pitching that. And I was like, when I understood that it was, and I knew that they were being honest about that. So I was like, oh, okay. Like it wasn't that you were just trying to give me a crazy job, like bid. When that happened, then all my guards were down and then I felt fine about it.
Yeah.
But it's the thing of, I just caught myself making that quick judgment.
Yeah.
I caught myself wanting to protect myself, and I caught myself feeling like I would just have a little bit of feelings. And so curiosity created safety for me.
Yeah. And it kills offense.
And it
right?
kills offense.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we're getting close to wrapping this up here, but I do want to say that like there's so much excessive drama that we create unnecessarily inside of our lives because of this issue right here. Like this individual podcast right here is one of the most powerful podcasts that you could actually listen to. This episode, if you really take it and begin to ask the question, where are the places that I'm not being curious? How is this creating, because this is a homework point for all of you all. Where are the places that I'm creating unnecessary drama and disconnection in my life because I have assigned intent all over the place, because I refuse to have candid conversations where I investigate and truly want to hear people's hearts and come at it, not with an accusational like, was this your job? Is this what you meant to do? But actually a genuine tender heart of like, I really want to understand what's going on here in this situation. Yeah.
The truth is, if I would have asked that person about the bid by like, tell me how you did this bid. I don't think I actually came with the idea, like, I don't know how they got to this, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. So there's a different type
information I'm missing.
Tenderness and like, hey, what's happening here? I do want to understand this situation. But like this right here is so potent and powerful, because this is where you're going to be able to restore intimacy and connection inside of relationships that you may have destroyed. And there may be some of you that are listening. Part of your homework might be to go to maybe just one individual that you've done a lot of assigning intent and lacked a lot, like seriously lacked curiosity.
Oh yeah.
In that may be a spouse that you're thinking of. That might be children. That might be a parent. That might be a friend. It might be an employee. But you're like, oh yeah, you know what? I've made up a whole story in my head about them and how they relate to me and how they do life. And I haven't really sought to understand and get curious. Those might be places that you actually go, I'm going to go address that person and apologize for the role that I've played and really seek to understand.
The other homework would be noticing when you're wanting to judge and actually finding out what your heart is feeling underneath that. What is it that you're trying to protect yourself from? I do want to mention one thing. I know we're wrapping up, but we can't end this podcast without talking about it. There is in the charismatic church institution, there is a belief that you can have prophetic discernment, which is I can just know other people's feelings, intentions, the spirit energy of why they're doing something that they're doing.
Yeah.
I can just know it. And I just want to say that in any sphere, if you don't have curiosity and the humility to know that you could be missing it.
Yeah.
There's something you could be missing. You might be picking up that there is something going on with that person. You might be picking up that there's a tragedy going on, and you might be picking up that there's a place that they're in self-protection. Like I hold to the fact that I often am picking up that something's happening.
Yeah.
I just don't know fully what it is.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is that there are people within cultures, especially strong faith cultures, where people feel like they know something from the Almighty about someone else or something else. And they weaponize spirituality, and it does a lot of harm.
Yeah.
And it's entrenched in a lot of judgment. It lacks a massive amount of humility
and grace.
And I think what you're saying is like, hey, that's something to be put in check. Like, are we people that are gracious? Are we kind with our assumptions about others? And even when we feel something is off, how do we approach that?
And can we be curious? Because I remember a time that you had a feeling that all of a sudden came over you about like something that had happened. You're like, I think this happened. Like it just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I think this person did this thing. And so instead of judging and deciding that you knew, you just went and asked them like, hey, did you do this thing? And then that was able to open up a dialogue. Anything.
Yeah. It's interesting because I've literally had moments where clients would boldface lie to me about stuff.
Oh, 100%.
And I had my knower went off and went, I know something's going on here. And I held my judgment and went, all right, I'm going to go ask straightforward questions.
Yes.
Because if I'm right about this, we need to clean it up. If I'm wrong about it, I want to clean it out of my mind.
Totally. That's so good.
Right. So clean it up or clean it out.
It's really good. It's catchy. You catchy.
And that's been great because it actually led to there was so many of them that I was right on, but what it actually led to was very intimate conversations
where people were opened up
and healthy and healing because there wasn't a punishment attached to it. It was like, am I getting this right? Is this what's happening here? You weren't
like, you're a liar and I know you're a liar. It's more like, hey, I had this feeling. Or
is that true?
What happened? Can you explain this to me?
And then it got into questions like, why did you feel like you had to lie to me? What was going on inside of you? What were you scared of? What were you feeling like you were needing that you couldn't get by being straightforward?
Yes.
What was the consequences that you felt like you were avoiding? Like all of that. And it became a relational element that's like, oh, we're better off because of this conversation.
Yep.
So anyways, well, hey, remember, applications for Life Consulting Masterclass, justinandabby.com. You can go check that out. Share, rate, review, subscribe, and share these episodes.
Yeah.
I know a bunch of y'all are going to be like, I know that person thought judgy. I'm going to
send them this.
I'm going to send this over to them.
You should. Go ahead and do it. Send it to the judgers.
The people who had this shared from other people as they listen into this.
They're like,
Man, this episode's been for me in my life, So I have all those problems.
You value that I don't feel as certain about my judgments about you anymore.
Yeah. I strongly value that. All right.
Well, time to leave.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to bed now.
I'm gonna go cuddle with you.
No.
Yeah.
No. Bedtime for Justin only. Bye.
Bye.